Welcome to Legislative Connection. I'm Wendy Bucknam, and today we have with us a very special guest from the South Orange County Community College District. We have your trustee, Mr. Tim Jemal. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wendy.
It's
Pleasure
great
to be here.
It's great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about who you replaced and how the election worked for you to get into your new position. You are a new trustee. We haven't had a trustee on in quite some time. So tell our residents a little bit about how that process worked.
Well, it was an open seat. I actually decided to run in August of 2012, right as the deadline to file
I remember.
Was approaching. And it just turned out that the incumbent decided not to run, therefore making it an open seat. I had done some volunteer work with the Community College District in their business department and got a phone call saying this seat may be of interest to you. I thought about it, consulted my family, and decided it was of interest and decided to run. And so it was a really wonderful opportunity for me to talk about our colleges and community colleges and higher education, which I feel so passionately about. And I'm grateful that the voters agreed.
I appreciate that. And of course, a lot of our residents here are very familiar with the South Orange County Community College District because the Emeritus program is in there. So I think probably one of the first things I'd like to talk about is the state budget and how the Emeritus program fits into that. So give us a little bit of background on what's going on with the state budget and what's going on with Emeritus in particular.
Well, the state budget has been an ongoing issue and challenge in California for many years because we've been subject to boom and bust cycles based upon the stock market, running deficit spending for many years in the state, which harms everybody. So now we have a situation where revenues have improved largely through various tax increases that have been imposed upon California, some of which I don't agree with, but it's where we are today. And so now we're facing a situation where we actually may have community colleges receiving more funding in 2013, 2014. And somewhere in the range of over $220 million in additional funding for our community colleges, which actually will be helpful. It'll deal with enrollment increases that we anticipate because for years enrollment has been sort of stagnant or even on the decline. Now that there may be some additional funding, hopefully it'll be used correctly, which I think it will be, and it'll afford greater access to higher education for students across the state. The budgets of community colleges are a challenge because one of the things about community colleges as opposed to other elements of higher education like four-year universities is community colleges are affordable education.
Right.
Though we love our UCs and our CSUs, what community colleges do is provide everyone who wants access to education the ability to take courses. And so hopefully with the budget crisis lessening a little bit in California, access to education for all students, young and old, will be there for years to come. So we don't have to keep going into crisis every year. Right.
Now, one of the things that didn't the community colleges receive quite a few cuts over the past several years?
Yes.
So is this additional revenue that you're getting now kind of bringing you back up, or are you actually increasing from prior years?
No, we're getting back to
where you were.
Yeah, we're going back to where we had been.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I thought.
And so it's not like, let me make it clear, it's not like community colleges are getting a windfall. That's not happening.
Right.
So I think there was passage of propositions in the last election that allowed some stabilization in budgets, and so we're basically getting to the point where we can actually now try to look at increasing enrollments because that's a challenge. What we don't want to do is have a situation, I know we'll probably get into it later, of a student who wants to take a course and is not able to do so because the course is filled up.
Right.
And so we don't want a situation where we're turning away students who want to get an education and need it at the community college level.
Okay. So now, is the budget for the community college district separate from the Emeritus budget, or does the Emeritus program sit within the community college district?
It does. The latter.
Okay.
So, and I'm glad you brought up the Emeritus program. I talked about it a lot when I ran for election. My father-in-law has lived in Laguna Woods for 12 years.
Great.
13 years now. Taken courses through the Emeritus program, and I'm really concerned about what's happening at the state budget because there's some talk. I think it's Senator Carol Liu, who represents LA area, chairwoman of the Senate Education Committee is talking about reducing state funding for adult education courses.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I had heard about that.
Yes, and that's a big concern, because if they do that, if the legislature does actually make cuts to our adult education program, that will affect the Emeritus program, and it will affect access for people who live in Laguna Woods to those courses that they want to take. And so when you
go ahead, I'm going to look up the bill. I think it's here.
I think it's SB 173.
Okay.
So our Emeritus program, over the past year, we had 26,000 enrollments from your community in our Emeritus program, which is phenomenal.
That is phenomenal.
Now, some of them are repeat students who are taking more than one course, but it's an incredible amount, and it's a great thing, because we know lifelong learning is positive, increases life expectancy. It also provides older adults an opportunity to get trained or retrained. Some of them actually want to go back to work. So if we reduced access through this legislation and eliminate or reduce substantially state funding, it will affect the Emeritus program. So 26,000 enrollments through the Saddleback College Emeritus program. That equates to over 1,200 what we call full-time equivalent students at the college. And so 400 sections. So it's a very impressive turnout in this community
here.
Well,
and they're held here. They're held within the community. Most of them, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
They are. Most of the courses are held here in the community. And so, I don't understand why legislators, and this issue has come up a little bit in the past, to go after adult education, because you look at older adults, they're the people that created the vision for higher education in California. They're the people who funded it. And then we are here in the 2013, and we want to take it away from them.
I know.
And I don't support it. I don't believe it will pass, but I do know there's an effort through this legislation to reduce access and funding to adult education programs. AARP is now issued a letter and is advocating strongly against the bill. For the reasons many of the reasons I just stated.
That makes sense. Now, if somebody wanted to find out more information, I see we've got your website up here for the South Orange County Community College District. Is there information about the actual, what's the status of the budget? Can people find out information on there? I'm kind of thinking that they might be able to. You've got a public affairs section.
They might, and they should look at our public affairs section for the Community College District. I would also look at the Community College League of California and their website, because they monitor statewide state legislation. So I would look at the Community College League. But you can start with our Community College District, and you can always contact me directly. I'd be happy to find that information for you. But there's plenty of...
he's clicking on you right now.
Yeah, there it is.
There you go.
So there's plenty of ways to access this information, but I really encourage people who are watching this, if you care about adult education, to get involved and contact your state legislators.
That's a good tip. And they know how to get a hold of our state legislators, because we have links on our website.
That's fantastic.
And we probably have a link to you too, and if not, I will double check on that.
I encourage them to do that.
Yeah, because that's a good way, and so I thank you for that. And they could probably go ahead and just include the topic adult education and Emeritus program, and I'm sure people will get the message. So that's a good tip. Well, that's important, and that's why I wanted to kind of hit on that first, because that comes up a lot in this community. The Assemblyman Mansour just had a town hall here, and that was several people asked that question, and they actually had a copy of the bill in their hand, so they already knew about it.
Good for them.
Yeah. So they were asking about it and wanted to know how he was going to, vote on this. So we'll see. He supported apparently keeping it.
Yes, and I know that Senator Mimi Walters voted against reducing funding for adult education, so we thank her for doing that in the Senate.
That's good. That's good.
And now the attention is on the Assembly.
Yeah, well, that's good information. Here it is, 173. Of course, after you say it, I find it. So it is SB 173. For those of you, I know we have some people out there that like to stay informed. So
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, we do. We sure do. Okay, let's talk about the. You have some online education. Talk about some other. I know a lot of our residents here. We have some technology savvy residents. So So talk about online education, and then I'm going to have you follow up and talk about the other side of your technology.
Sure.
You have that area that is it called the Advanced Technology and Education,
Right.
ATEP.
Sure.
So talk about that after you talk about your online.
So what's going on, Wendy, nationally and in the state legislatures and state legislatures across the country and in California as well, there's a strong movement to introduce more online education for students. And so actually in the budget, in the governor's budget, I should have mentioned earlier, or the budget that the legislature is embarking on and reviewing, there probably will be additional funding for online education, around $17 million. And so there's a real push to do that because, one, we have the technology to do it.
Yeah.
And two, a lot of the courses that students want to take on-site, in person, in classrooms are filled up. And therefore what's happening, these students often don't have a place to go, or for example, they may go to a for-profit, which, may cost them more money. And it defeats the purpose of having a community college, which is access to everyone who needs an education and wants it can get it. Right. So I'm really supportive of online education. There are some strong arguments against it in terms of making sure the quality of the courses, the integrity of the courses. I know some in the academic community, some of the faculty have some trepidation about online education because they want to be sure that the courses, the content that is taught is approved by academic senates, and that is important.
Yeah.
But I think there are faculty also that have to adapt, and we have to realize
we're all
that
adapting.
we have to adapt. You
Yeah.
and I have to adapt.
Right.
And I understand the concerns, but you're seeing a number of bills. I know the governor, the head of the state senate here in California are all pushing for significantly more funding and access to online education. And so that's a reality.
Yeah.
And I think that if your students can't find a course, if students in the community can't find a course in person, it may be available online. And if it's not, they should call our district and ask if it will be.
Okay, that's good information. Well, and it does fill a gap, and in technology is better. Online educations of yesterday and 10 years ago are totally different today. There is some interactivity, so who knows?
Well, technology, video conferencing is improved.
Absolutely.
I think what some of the concerns, we want to have interaction between the faculty and the student. So in terms of offering office hours and office visits and the ability for the student to access the professor, that's important. But there are ways to do that, with online education. And I think the reality, Wendy, it's here to stay.
Yeah.
It's happening. We're not going to stop it. We need to do it right. And I think we just need to pay attention to the process and make sure the integrity of the education remains intact.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. All right, speaking of technology, I know that because I listened to you when you were campaigning, I happen to know that you're very passionate about this, ATEP. TAP. How do you say it? ATEP?
The Advanced Technology and Education Park.
Got it.
In Tustin. And now it's, for your audience, in our college district, we have Saddleback College, Irvine Valley College, which are colleges. And then we have, as part of our district, the Advanced Technology and Education Park. There it is, in Tustin. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with the old Marine Corps Air Station.
Yeah, yes.
And that's where the campus is located. So we have about 70 acres of land that has been, as part of our district, that for the purpose of providing education and training for students so they become employed in growth sectors of the economy. And so some good news is on the horizon. And then after years of trying to make the campus friendly to students and contiguous. So there are parcels of land in there that are part of our district that are not contiguous. So our district's been in negotiations and conversations with the city of Tustin for many years now. And so we're on the cusp of a pretty big announcement that will...
Are we getting something like...
We might...
Firsthand here?
Yeah, well, you're getting something
Wow.
firsthand, hopefully very soon. I can't say when because there are still details to be worked
That's
out,
fine.
where there will be a land swap that takes place with the city of Tustin, and whereby some of the land that we were previously, as a college district, managing will go to them and some of the land will go to us. And we'll have a new contiguous district that's ready for business. And so there'll be education there, and there will also be partnerships with the private sector. And so it's really exciting because we want to offer education for the future, a world-class campus. Technology related, and probably the sectors we'll focus on is healthcare, digital media, advanced manufacturing, optics, areas where employers sometimes can't find the right skill set, and then our colleges provide the training and education that they need to fill those jobs here in Orange County.
Very responsive. So if a business sector sees a need in Orange County, they could potentially come to you.
Correct.
And you will be responsive to the need and set up education.
Absolutely. And oftentimes
awesome.
there are certificates that are required either through the state or other certificates you need to qualify for a certain position. That's why I'm really excited about this campus.
You're excited
and I talked about
that.
it a lot because I think it's an opportunity. Quite frankly, the campus hasn't realized its original vision, and I think we have the opportunity to do that.
That's exciting. So there's maybe some potential for people who are maybe trying to revamp what they know and maybe get up to date from the technology standpoint, that this would be a great opportunity even for people here, some of our folks that maybe are looking to change careers.
Sure.
Because we have people that are still working in our community.
I know, and so yes, ATEP would, I think, in the future will be a great opportunity for residents who live here. There are opportunities even exist today, though, at Saddleback College and Irvine Valley College. They're still moving forward with their training and certificate programs. So, but this just opens up a new field, an area for us to involve ourselves in sectors where there's growth and where there's jobs, and that's, that's a really important element of our mission as a college district, to help students find sustainable employment that can let them earn an honest, decent living.
Yeah. That's great. That's exciting news. So I thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
You mentioned something about the healthcare industry, and I happen to know at Saddleback College that there's an amazing nursing training program. Not that I want you to speak directly about that, but I know that that's something that Saddleback has actually been known for many, many years. And they worked with Mission from the very beginning.
And they still work with Mission Hospital. It's a fantastic program. One of the benefits of being a trustee and elected, you get to do a lot of fun things. And one of the things that rewarding activities, and one of the rewarding activities I attended last month was a nurses pinning ceremony at Saddleback College, where I think we had about 200 or so graduates of our nursing school who are moving forward in their careers, maybe an advanced degree or going forward and becoming employed right away. It's a top-notch program.
I've heard that.
There is close cooperation with Mission Hospital and Mission Viejo. And I think what you'll see with ATEP is an even extension of that, even furthering that training and development and education in the healthcare sector.
Yeah.
So it's one of the best in the country.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's awesome. But a segue now. Let's talk about the Affordable Care Act, and also known as Obamacare, and the impact that is having for the community college, or what you're seeing on whether it's impacting the college itself or what you're seeing from a trend standpoint.
Well, it will impact, and there are a lot of views on Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, and the reality is that in our district, it will have an impact. In fact, at an upcoming board meeting, we will probably request a report detailing more information on the impact. But one of the provisions of Obamacare or Affordable Care Act is that employees who work 30 or more hours be offered health insurance. Right. So we face the possibility in our district of many employees or staff, faculty, who otherwise would be part-time may qualify for full-time benefits. And so when you have that trigger, then you will have obviously an increase in funding. So there will be a financial impact. There could be maybe a financial impact on the district. And it's something that we have to look out for. And we have to be ready, we have to be prepared for, because any increase in expenditure somewhere is going to require perhaps an adjustment somewhere else. Or a cut. We don't want that, but it's something that we need to prepare for. And there are other provisions in the legislation or in the law that there's lots of fines and fees, and so it will have an impact. it will have a financial impact, and we're trying to stay on top of it as a college district to see how this will.
It's kind of hard to
happen.
know, isn't it?
It is. It's a very complex law. I don't profess to have followed it in the level of detail that maybe others have done, but the bottom line is it's very complex, and it's going to cost the district it likely will cost the district additional dollars, and we need to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Okay. Talk a little bit about your the Proposition 39 funding.
Yeah, so Proposition 39 passed in the November elections, and it basically closed what some would call a loophole of corporations that were out of state, and it allowed the state of California to collect more taxes from them, and there's now some in the range of $450 million available for basically energy efficiency programs, and also other programs that lead to what they call green jobs, or jobs in the new economy, the clean tech economy. So in that program, there will be funding available to community colleges and institutions of higher education and K through 12 to fund programs that will help train students who can get jobs in the clean tech or green economy.
Got it.
So I hope it works. Oftentimes these programs get started and they don't stay on course. And so it's our job as a trustee and part of the community college district leadership to make sure that when we get this funding, it is spent in the way that it should be spent. That is, we provide the training that does lead to employment in these sectors of the economy.
Yeah, and I know that we have there's a lot of different opportunities coming up. I mean, they just talked about San Onofre closing, so we have energy issues, and a lot of people are seeking clean, green energy.
Correct.
So that's a lot of different potential future jobs.
Well, you have the show called Legislative Connections. It's interesting. So the question is, is the legislation supposed to drive the economy, or is the economy supposed to drive, where jobs are created?
That's a very good question.
And so
observation. I don't know.
Well, no, I believe in the private sector and entrepreneurship. I think that drives our growth. It drives, job creation. It drives sustainable employment. But you now have a situation where San Onofre will be closing. There's over 1,000 jobs that might be lost.
Right.
Some may be retained. Some of those employees, I hope they are retained. But so there's two issues there. How do we find the energy that's going to be lost so that we, in Southern California, with millions of us living here, continue to have the energy and power that we need? And two, then what happens to those employees? And so
are they retraining? Well,
they're going to need retraining, perhaps, unless they're offered some kind of retirement. But many of them probably will seek retraining. And that's where the community colleges are best suited to provide that kind of education. I mean, we're accessible, we're affordable, and so I hope some of those students do look to us, and I hope that we are able to provide them training they need.
That's great. Okay, let's move on to talking a little bit about student loans. Now, this isn't usually something that our community is interested in, but I think they might be based on some information you may have. But not only that, there's grandkids, and a lot of times grandkids rely on grandparents to help with maybe funding education. So I think it's an important topic to talk about. So give us a little update on what you know about what's going on with student loans.
I'll tell you what I know. Typical with Washington, this has become a political football issue. And actually very soon, student loan interest rates are supposed to double. And when you have that happen, it's going to make college prohibitive for many students who otherwise could afford it. And it's interesting, at a time when interest rates are lowest they've been in years, we might be doubling the student loan interest rates. That's just wrong. And and I mean, I don't know.
What is the current? Is it 3.4%?
Correct.
To 6.8%?
Correct. So we're talking about a potentially doubling. I mean, a lot of your listeners own homes, pay interest rates. I mean, think about if your mortgage interest rate were to double tomorrow. Which is what they're possibly facing. And how many times have you heard about your children or your grandchildren who are still paying off student loans 10, 20, 30 years later. And so there has to be a balance here. I think no one argues that the loans should be given free, but at the same time, I don't think anyone thinks that a situation where we'll possibly be doubling these student loans will be helpful to education or the economy.
So are they proposing to double student loans that exist now or future students?
Future students.
Because they couldn't possibly
My understanding
change.
is it's expiration of the current program, and because
I
they
got it.
aren't able to communicate and get along well enough to figure out how to reconstruct the program, that when it expires, the rates then will be doubled.
I see.
So let's hope that our elected officials in Washington get together and figure this out.
Okay, let's finish up with just a little bit of talk. We have just about 3 minutes left on veterans. There's some veteran legislation and some things going on that the community college is involved in.
There are. So just to give a big picture view, over the next 5 years, there's about 500,000 veterans who will now be entering the private sector, a significant number. And we're talking, of those 500,000, 60% are going to end up here in California. I'm glad they're coming.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Yeah, and we love our veterans. And a lot of veterans actually join the military because they're looking to further their education. So what often happens, unfortunately, is when they come back from their service to our country, they end up perhaps in a state where they're not a resident. And what will happen is then they get charged out-of-state tuition.
Right.
And so you have a number of bills in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. that would address this situation, and whereby they would allow for a veteran who is returned, who may not be a resident of that state but wants to access higher education in that state, is able to do so with in-state tuition, which I support.
That sounds like a great idea.
It is, and it just strikes me how we didn't do this sooner.
Yeah.
And there are
That's surprising.
It is, and I was actually surprised myself. I thought it was easier for them, veterans, quite frankly, to access in-state tuition rates than it is, but it is difficult. Each state is different, and the goal here, I think, would be to have federal legislation, because we are dealing with a national issue, a legitimate national issue. But absent federal legislation, there is state legislation that would, in essence, provide for in-state tuition for our returning veterans who want to attend colleges and universities in California, and I hope we have that.
Well, that's exciting, because I know I did not know that, and that's some great information, and I think that's probably some good information for some of our residents who probably have some kids or grandkids that are returning and have in their service to our country, and so that's some good information.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you for coming on, and the time has just flown. You've given
Really
us
did.
a wealth of information, and our residents know how to get in touch with you. They can get in touch with you through the Saddleback. So it's SOC.
SOCCD.
Triple C.
Yep.
Okay.
.edu.
Okay, and we will also put a link in the Contact Your Legislator section of the Laguna Woods Village website to make it super easy for people to find you. And they can reach you. It looks like there's easy click-on buttons to send you
The email address
messages.
is on the website. Yep.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the
Thanks,
show today
Wendy.
and sharing all this good information. We'll have you back again another day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us today on Legislative Connection, where we connect you with the issues.